while you're on the phone with your loved ones and make you hang up on them. The paper was only about 3 sentences long, and it said something like, "I made it safely, this is my address." It was a very simple text to read, but more than half of the guys in my flight of 60 couldn't handle it. I looked around and tears were flowing as they tried to read the script. Grown men in their 20s crying like children, talking to their moms and wives, wanting to say more but not being able to, while the MTIs sat ready to pounce. One kid started straying from his script, and I heard, "What the frick? That's not what that says. Read the damn paper." The kid cried harder, and another MTI sprinted from across the room and started yelling at him too. The MTIs loved that. At the first sign of a trainee pissing themselves in fear or discomfort, the MTIs all turned into vultures and jumped on the fresh meat. "Grown-ass men crying? You miss mommy? Unbelievable. This goddamn generation. Pussies. We are so screwed against China whenever that happens." One of the MTIs shook his head as he walked by me. "Hello?" I heard Mom's voice. I quickly snapped my eyes back from across the room to my piece of paper, but first I made sure there were no MTIs around me before I spoke. "Mom," I said, "I'm supposed to read this card, but just grab a pen really quick. I have an address for you. Miss and love you guys, can't say anything else." An MTI turned around. I started reading the script before he heard me say, "My mailing address is the following." Never once did a tear well up. Call me a non-pussified millennial, but it seemed like a pretty silly thing to cry over. I knew Mom would understand, and it's not that I didn't miss her or home, but I knew all of this was temporary, and so did she. I would get to call home again at some point and be able to explain, and if she had questions, there are a million forums online that talk about this exact phone call. After hanging up, I stood at attention and waited until everyone was done with their calls, watching others get yelled at and others cry. This was not what I had expected at all when I'd left for basic training, but this seemed to be the theme of that first week. Finding out that I'd had a warped idea of what my experience would be like. I was expecting to be surrounded by dozens of guys running 6-minute miles, doing 100 push-ups with ease, and walking around emotionless like military robots. I had been worried that I didn't do enough to prepare myself. This was not the case. I was well prepared to handle basic training, if not over-prepared. I don't say that braggingly either. My perception of basic training and the military were far from reality. I had clearly watched too many Navy SEAL movies, and I think this happens with many people who join with certain high expectations. I also didn't realize at the time that my upbringing had over-prepared me for this kind of emotional manipulation. It's part of the reason my peers called me the perfect trainee, graduating with honors and excelling at almost everything we did. Our upbringing also helped my brother Bo graduate number 1 in his Navy basic training class, literally number 1 out of 1,200 recruits in his unit. To say that I was proud as hell of him is an understatement. We didn't know why at the time, but we were perfect candidates to handle the emotional game of the military, more than prepared, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I want to clarify that basic training wasn't easy. I hear a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, it was a cakewalk, basic is a joke." But the truth is it's subjective, and it's not a cakewalk, no matter who you are. It's definitely a lot easier than I thought it would be, but it still isn't 2 months I would voluntarily go back and relive. It was a mental game, and the entire point of basic training in any branch is to detach you from your previous life and identity and make you prioritize your new identity, that of a soldier, Marine, airman, or sailor. These new military duties will deal with life and death situations, and attention to detail is a must. Worrying about your individual lifestyle, ethnicity, religion, and so on gets in the way of that. There is no time for that in the military. You either grow the hell up and get over all of that, or get out. There's a mission, and the mission comes first. For some people, that is hard to do depending on what their previous life was like. That being said, there is a clear difference between Marine basic training and the rest, and for good reason. Marines are out there getting shot at and shooting far more than the other branches. To get someone mentally prepared for that experience is tough, so the mental training is tougher. My friend was a Marine, and he said that during the first week at boot camp, the drill instructors told the new recruits that North Korea had attacked America and that they would all be deploying in the following few weeks, even though they'd just arrived and hadn't even shot a weapon yet. The new recruits had no idea how to confirm this either, because in basic you were completely cut off from the outside world. America needed the bodies, they were told, and they were all going to war the next day. Talk about a mind screw. The mental games in Air Force basic training were nowhere near